Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Mike Armstrong podcast show. And this afternoon, I'm joined by Ryan Sawyer, who's from IHP Coaching, which he'll tell you what that stands for in a minute, based in the USA. You're Colorado, are you, Ryan?
Spokane, Washington.
Oh,
Spokane.
Washington. Sorry about
Yeah,
that. I got you
that's
mixed
okay.
up with someone else there, I think. I was looking at someone else from America regarding a podcast booking. They were in Colorado, but I do a lot with American podcasters at the moment. So, yeah, it's nice to get another one on my podcast. Obviously the UK side of things does tend to do a lot with the States because obviously the language, and I get a few
Mhm.
Australians and South Africans, and I've got people from all over the world on my podcast the last few weeks. But yeah, it's been interesting to find out a little bit about what you do. So tell us a little bit. Tell us a little bit about what the coaching you do does and how it's going at the moment, etc.
Yeah, so the coaching thing is something that's fairly new that we're just launching this membership. It launches in September. So this is another, 2 weeks from today or so, a week and a half. And what it's going to be is a membership model. And, from our own journey and growth, and we'll see where this conversation goes and how much of that story we tell. But to make a long story short for now, my wife and I were in a place where we were on the rocks. I was basically preparing to move out of the house and we were separating. And a lot of it had to do with my battle of overcoming depression and anxiety and her just not knowing how to handle that. And when we were at that kind of that breaking point of trying to figure out what was next for the two of us and okay, what does this mean for the kids and all these other pieces of the puzzle, like we really thought we were done. We had this kind of download of a message to say, you know what, let's focus on our individual growth. Let's stop trying to change things about each other and about our environment. And let's just really do some deep internal work, some deep emotional work of trying to show up as the best versions of ourselves and get an idea of what that would look like. Let's figure out who we're being with ourselves and each other and who we want to be. And let's try to close that gap between the two, basically. Right. And in that, this was years ago, but in doing so, we really recognize the value and the importance of in a relationship or in any sort of business leadership and or in a marriage, but everything starts within those four walls, is for everybody to do their own individual work. Right. So we have gone down the path of studying all kinds of different pieces of science-based, research-based for helping people to become a better version of themselves, whether it be through breath work and meditation and visualization and just other coaching topics that understand how the brain works and neuroscience and heart coherence and all these pieces of the puzzle that allow for us to stay grounded and connected and aligned to our purpose in life, right? And so we developed a membership that helps people support their own personal growth. And the unique piece with it is my wife and I are doing it together. So we will do question and answer type calls together, and then we'll do individual calls with just the men. I'll go with the men, she'll go with the women. So it's a safer place potentially to talk about some things that are more specific to our genders, right? And we'll have a whole content of, like I said, breath work and meditation paths, but we also have monthly topics that we're going to cover. And so we've been building this for about 2 years, the content and everything piece with that. And now we're finally launching this next month. And so it's really exciting, and it kind of goes hand in hand with the book that we have coming out as well. So.
Okay, good. And what does the IHP stand for again? So I can
It stands for Integrated Human Performance.
Okay.
So this idea of really taking our life and looking at it from a physical, a mental, and an emotional pillars, as those three being our three pillars, and trying to integrate a practice, whether it be through morning ritual or throughout the day, to support us in being able to handle stress and visualize a future self and to walk in those steps. So.
Yeah, brilliant. And it sounds like you've had a very similar sort of journey to me, which is funny because mine happened after my divorce with my ex-wife. So, you actually decided at some point, I guess, with your with your wife, who could have been your ex, had it not gone down that path, you decided at some point to work on this together. And obviously I decided to work on this after, I'd split up with my ex-wife, if you like. I went down the route of personal development and all of that to get
Mm-hmm.
over that, I suppose, to get over that chasm in my life, if you like, that happened after, after leaving my ex-wife and my three daughters, etc. And finding I didn't really have anything, driving me anymore like I always did have. And then just decided I needed to find my own self-fulfillment, my own self-drive and all of that. I started developing myself based on skills I already had, like goal setting and things like that, and personal development to get back to the goal-driven person that I was. But a couple of chance meetings with some people in the personal development space put me straight into sort of personal development, and then that's got me into sort of a bit of sleep. And well, I always understood the value of sleep, or understanding the importance of that, but also understanding the importance of mindfulness and meditation and looking after your ability to perform, which is exercise, nutrition, hydration, doing things like random acts of kindness, which makes you feel good, makes other people good, and keeps karma going. And also, keeping with that target setting and whatever. So the reason I talk to you about that is I come up with a smart happiness formula, which stands, which is sleep, meditation, ability to perform, random acts of kindness, and target setting. So that's where my sort of delve into myself come out. That's what it produced. So it's interesting because it sounds like it's come up with you've gone through a similar process, and it's come up with this course of helping couples and individuals who are in need of learning this stuff, if you like. You're teaching them through a monthly subscription.
That's right. That's right. And what I have found in my own transformation, when I went from a big transition in life from one career to another, and started my own business, is that I recognize for me to transform and change my own life, to overcome depression and anxiety that was so severe, I was suicidal and severe anxiety attacks. For me to overcome those pieces, I looked at everything you just talked about, like sleep hygiene and nutrition and exercise and somatic movement and yoga and breath work and meditation, all these pieces, and then just powerful questioning, right? And gratitude practice, all these pieces of the puzzle that allow for us to lift our vibration. So we just are becoming a different version of ourselves, right? I recognize that those same practices apply to transformation or change that apply to being a high performer, right? And to really learning to grow in that realm as well. So it's just where you are in life depends. And we see the importance of like I said, in relationships, if one person's growing and the other person is not, there's going to be some friction there. Yeah, it's going to be resistance. So they don't have to be 100% parallel paths, but we both have to be on the path, right, of growth, right?
That's why I didn't stay with my ex-partner, because I didn't believe that she would have. We needed to change the way we were living, and I didn't believe she would. So I kept trying to make change happen, but she was very stuck in her ways and stubborn, if you like. Didn't being a bit like a mule. You know what I mean? You can take the horse to water, but you can't make it drink, sort of thing. And I just seen that the development wasn't going to be there. And it's funny, since we split up, I think she went through that development path, but I think it would have taken something like us splitting up for that to happen. And so at some point, we've actually both been through similar sort of journeys. I think since, although I say I think because we've only had brief talks together, if you like, during that time. But at that time, it sounds to me you were lucky. You were both looking to develop and grow at the same time. And I think me and my wife were at those different speeds, and we pulled a bit apart. And once I couldn't get the change I needed to get done changed in the marriage, I left the marriage.
Yeah.
So it can be tough. We're getting people on the same trajectory at the same time.
But and it's not going to be the same. It's not going to be at the same pace per se. We've always been on different paces. We all set our own pace. But the idea is to take on a mindset of trying to become 1% better every day for you, whatever that is, right? And from wherever you are, and And so, like I said, I think just making sure that message is clear is that we're not saying that we have to both be reading the same book
No.
or, doing all the same things and practices. Like, and she doesn't have nearly the same morning practice of meditation than I do, but, she has her way of connecting and staying grounded and humble and going for walks in nature and things of that nature where I'd rather be in the seated position, focusing on my breath and taking myself to a different realm that way. So, it just kind of depends on how you connect, with
That's how
that
the
deep
personal
message.
sort of development, personal empowerment space goes, isn't it? At the end of the day, we all have our different. Once you get into that realm, we all have our different ways of exploring the realm, and certain things resonate with us because of our own individual preferences and identities, and
That's right.
the things that we care about. But as long as you're both sort of evolving and moving together, then you can still stay together as growing beings, I think. And I
Yeah.
come from a sort of sales environment and sales management, sales directorship, where everything to me was always about self-improvement, slight marginal gains,
Sure.
constant improvement, etc. Which is why I love the personal development space and personal empowerment, and why I'm now teaching those sort of things, because I'm trying to pass back. And also, my divorce, come about from some financial problems and some knock-on effects of the global credit crunch. And as soon as I seen the lockdown happen, I seen, this is another situation. This is the global credit crunch Mark II, wrapped up in the form of a pandemic. And after being a victim of the one in 2008, I didn't want to be a victim in this one. And I also
Yeah.
I wanted to help as many other people I see as potentially becoming victims from not being victims. So I got into full on like action mode as soon as this
Yeah.
pandemic happened. And it was like, okay,
Yeah.
what can I do to help? What can I do to
Right.
make sure I'm not a victim? And what can I do to help? Which is why, I wrote a book at the beginning of the lockdown. I started my podcast. I started recording a lot of content because I'm trying to help people wherever possible. I come up with the happiness formula, which led to me then creating the success formula, because, I've been very successful for the vast majority of my life. And I thought, right, I'm going to share why with other people. And like you said, if you do a lot of these things, it's like elite performance. And, I've been in elite business performance for a long time. So my smart happiness formula led on to my stream success formula. And actually, if you do the smart streams together, you've got an elite business performance formula of consistent high achievement. And I believe the smart streams will put you into full flow, so
Mhm.
yeah, so it's uncanny really, but it sounds like we had very, very similar thought
Well,
processes.
I want to add something there that's on the same path as well. When April hit and we got locked down, I actually one of our other sources of income is a residential painting company that I started years ago, and so that was non-essential here, right? And so it was parked. And at the time, my wife was still working, and she was an event coordinator, which there's no events going on, so she lost her job. Our main source of income is parked in the driveway, right?
Yeah,
And so that there was that initial like, oh man, what's going to happen here, right? And am I going to have a business after this? And within a half a day later of kind of processing the whole thing, I went into massive action, and that's why I sat down and wrote my book and started to create. Really, we had a lot of the content ready to go. This idea of a membership has been swirling around in our heads for a couple of years, but it was like, this is needed now.
yeah,
This is needed. Our goal was to get it out in July, but it's a lot of work to get it to where you're comfortable putting it out to the world and feel like it's ready for that. I feel like you're ready for that because of just everything going on. And so, yeah, the kids are at home, we're homeschooling, she's unemployed. My business is parked, and it was like, this is where we have to push. This is where we got to go. Everybody else is going to potentially fall back into some sense of fear or unknown. And we have to push ourselves forward through that resistance. Right. And
yeah,
so
yeah.
super.
How old are you, by the way?
I'm 43.
I'm 40,
Well,
42, 43 September.
I'm 43 at the end of this month.
Oh,
August 27th. August 27th is my birth date, and that's the day we're launching the book. So,
I'm September 28th, and it sounds like we've had almost identical lockdowns.
right? Yeah, I love it. It's like this was meant to have a conversation we were meant to have, or something. I don't know. Huh?
Yeah, well, I think we're both at the moment in our stage of pushing our energy and growing and stuff. So we're both on the same sort of energy level and in the same place and stuff. So I'm reaching out globally to expand my network after being a massive UK networker, and before that a big Wales networker. And so, I'm reaching out to people, and the people who are getting my vibrations, if you like, who are reaching out to me or responding to me in whatever way when I put stuff on the podcast guest blog, or I put stuff in LinkedIn or on my podcast, the people coming to me are people who are doing very similar things. So I'm having lots of these great chats with people and building my network around the world of people who are, my tribe, if you like, people who are, on the same wavelength exactly. I'm not speaking to people who are like I used to when I was in the UK and in Wales, entrepreneurs of all sorts, which I love entrepreneurs and I love people because I do sales and marketing training and networking and, entrepreneurship and social media, and all entrepreneurs need help in those areas. But actually, globally, I don't need to work with all entrepreneurs. I need to work with ones who are in my vibe and in my energy space and all of that. And they're the ones that seem to be gravitating towards me because of this new online globalization. But I think we're all vibrating on the same level.
Yep. Now that's a vibrational match, and it really makes you stop and look at, okay, so if something in my life isn't showing up the way that I desire, like, I need to take a peek inside, right? This goes back to our topic of saying, how can I raise my own vibration? What is it that's keeping me from vibrating to such a level that attracting people like yourself into my life to be able to have these conversations, right? There's sometimes these blockages within us, these limiting beliefs that are stored in our psyche and in our body and everywhere else from, there'll be early developmental years. And we have to go through the process of either letting go of certain beliefs and ways we think the world works, or our conditioning or our biases and cultural or whatever else, or replace that narrative. We have to rewrite a narrative for ourselves, the story for ourselves, so we can step into that higher vibration and start to attract the people in our lives that are going to help us and create that community like you're talking about for us all to grow. Like the idea of creating an environment of growth, right?
Yeah.
Whether it be in your own home, in your own community, or in what you're doing here in the stage of the world, right? And going worldwide with it. So that's excellent. I love it.
Definitely. And I've gone from doing 2 networking events a week to doing about 6 to 8 on average. This week I'm going to be doing 10. They're all 2 hours of time, But then the front end of my funnel, I bring them in then, from networking then, I bring them in to do a Zoom call, which is a podcast and a YouTube channel. And then they're in my network then. And then it's okay, who else do I know that I can connect them with now? And then who else am I going to meet in the future that I can connect them with now because I know who they are. I know what they're doing.
Right.
So it's all about that, building that long-term tribe. In addition to those 10 networking events this week, 6 to 8 most weeks, one of the networks is a bit more like a mastermind and a network. So I'm in a mastermind stroke network, plus I'm in 2 other masterminds. So I do 2 other weekly 1-hour mastermind calls, and I'm about to, at some point, when I got the right vibrations and audience and time, I'm probably going to do my own global mastermind of like-minded individuals and actually just get us all growing together, because of Napoleon Hill, Think and Grow Rich, and the power of the mastermind, just everyone benefiting from each other's knowledge. But I want to get everyone benefiting the globe from each other's knowledge, from global resource of knowledge, taking into consideration those differences in knowledge depending on which country you're living in and what the experiences are in those countries, because that helps them with what the world needs right now, which is actually the bringing together of people and not the division of people, which is what's happening at the moment because of black and white and and face mask and not face mask and economics and not economics and stay in and stay out and and green and not green.
Political views, and that's right.
Yeah.
A lot of separation. So
to me, we need leadership, and we need leaders that are going to build bridges and not walls.
Right. Exactly. We got to come together and see the commonality within all of us, right? And see that we're all just doing our best and hopefully, getting better from there. It's just interesting you bring up the Think and Grow Rich. So I have a practice that I do. I want to share it real quick if you're okay with that. This morning I even did it where I have created a council, like he talks about in the book, a council in your own mind, right? Of mentors, of leaders, of whatever it be from, and so on a regular basis, probably once a week, I have a conversation with that council. in a meditative type state. I go into what I call the mind gym. So I go into this place that's, in a sense, in nature, where there's a beach and a little lake and a fire pit, and we all sit around the fire pit and have a conversation, And so I don't know why I brought that up, but it's funny for you to talk about that whole idea of masterminding and having a council. This is something for people to think about, not only in the physical realm, of looking at what your circle of influence is, right, and who it is you're associating yourself with, and at the same time, we should all be reaching up to try to learn something new and to grow, and also reaching down and to pull somebody up and to help somebody along. So it's, what are we gaining from these masterminds, and what can we potentially give at the same time? There's always this give and take happening at the same time, right?
One third, split.
Yeah.
One third your peers, one third people you can learn off, one third people you can teach.
There you go. Exactly. But there's also a lot of value in having this own counsel of your counsel, in your mind as well, and taking it from that place, because there's a lot of knowledge that's just floating around. Yeah. If we can quiet ourselves down enough, we can tap into it.
Also, I believe in learning off the best people on the planet in the areas you want to become the best person on the planet in. So, like, I got about, somewhere between 5 and 10 mentors, if you like, who are the best people on the planet in those areas that I'm interested in.
Exactly.
And I'm on a mission to become a global speaker. So, they're all good speakers, all of them, but then they're good speakers on certain topics that I want to become even better at. My 7 streams of success really covers a lot of it. The streams formula for success covers systems, technology, relationships, efficiency, action, marketing, and sales. They're the areas that I know if you want to grow in success in life, you need to be good at those 7 areas, because, like, if you don't put things into a system, and you don't get efficiency, and you don't get the autopilot and the sort of flow state, if you're not doing a system. If you're not using technology, you're getting left behind this day and age, because it's a technical world. If you don't build and invest in relationships with other people, then you're going to struggle on your own forever, because every successful person has a good team behind them.
Sure. Yeah.
And then you've got so you've got systems, technology, relations, efficiency, which systems and technology gives you, but it's what allows you to be able to do more with more. So you need efficiency. Actions, which is what allows you to put yourself out there in the world by being seen, because you're doing so much activity and so much actions. And then marketing and sales, if you want to be successful in any walk of life, you need to be known. You know what I mean? Because there's lots of people out there who are very good at what they do, but nobody knows them. So they're not successful. Or they could be successful in their own sphere of life, but they're not successful in anyone else's sphere or opinion of them or of life, because nobody knows them, because they haven't been able to sell or market their success and what they do. So in a way, you work on, I believe, if you work on those 7 areas, whatever you do in life, you will become successful and be known for being successful in those areas, because you're constantly growing and developing in them. But then obviously, if you combine that with your happiness formula, the SMART formula, which is sleep, meditation, ability to perform, covering exercise, nutrition, and hydration, random acts of kindness, and targets, then basically you can sustain your success. Whereas anyone can have success on its own, but it's unsustainable, and you might die early, or you can have a heart attack, or you might, because you're not looking after yourself. But you put the 2 together, and you've got elite business performance. You can basically, keep building your relationships, your systems, your technologies, your actions, your marketing, your sales. Keep building those layers up and those levels up, while still looking after yourself, having a balanced life, and therefore having longevity in your success.
Right. Exactly. I love that model. I love that SMART. That's excellent. I just wrote it down real fast while you were talking.
Yeah, well, I give it to people because I want to share it with the world. It's my invention, it's my creation during lockdown, and it's what I come up with the formula at the time because I was living the formula. But it's also Jarek Robbins, son of Tony Robbins. I listened to Jarek do a presentation, and he was talking about the 5 steps of happiness, and that's what resonated with me. Is I was actually living those 5 steps at the time. And that's why I created the formula, because I thought I love this 5 steps of happiness. I disagree with some of it a little bit. I'm going to give my own version of it, and I'm going to teach it to people because I was living it at the time that I heard it and I thought, like, this is really good stuff. Like, this is really, it come out from within me after listening to a talk. And the 5 steps of happiness is good, but I believe the acronym that I've given to it and the slight variance I've done on what I was listening to is actually better. So I've ended up being smarter with the information, and I
Yeah.
believe it into a smarter form of training. And so and then after coming up with that, the words, and then coming up with the acronym, a big part of my success, a big part of my happiness, is success. So it just led naturally on from smart and happiness into success and performance.
Yeah. It's such a parallel when it comes to how we all have an audience, right? There's somebody out there who wants your message, your voice, your perspective from, your experiences, right? No matter what somebody else has put out to the world, it's really easy in this realm of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to make an impact in the world to say, oh, somebody else has already done that. They already had the 5 this or the 8 of that and principles for success and whatever else, right? And in all reality, we all have a unique perspective, right? And so there's somebody out there who needs your perspective, right? There's somebody out there that needs your tools, what you've created, how you've done things. I actually have a model of what I call the model of transformation.
Yeah.
And it's called the choice point, right? And so choice point is basically where we recognize we want something different. So we make a choice that there's something in our different that needs change, right? And then it goes to the void. And the void is where we have to create space. If we don't declutter our lives or simplify our lives or watch less TV, we're not going to find the time to make the changes and to create new habits that are going to lead to any sort of change in life, right? And then the climb, which is basically doing the work, right? Implementing something new into your life, taking on a new practice, hiring reaching out to mentors, hiring a coach, taking on challenges like you talked about, doing 75 days of challenges, whatever that is. And then from the climb, we end up finding ourselves at a place where things have shifted, things have changed, but we haven't made it, right? There's this false summit, or what we call a plateau, where you've gone through something different, you've gone through something difficult, and you're kind of at this place where you feel like, hey, but the ground is slippery. And if you don't pay attention and keep moving and keep growing, the ground's going to slip out from underneath you, right? And then so that last piece of that cycle of transformation, I call it, is integration, is full integration, where we continue to do the work. And then there's this sense of allowing ourselves to become that higher expression, allowing ourselves to welcome in abundance into our life, to welcome new people into our lives, to embrace a new perspective of life and see things from a different angle, or from a higher perspective, hopefully, as we climb up that mountain, right? And then it just all starts again as we recognize that we're now fully integrated as a new way of experiencing life. Then we're at another choice point, right? And it just starts all over again. Say, what else am I going to remove or simplify or declutter? My wife and I are constantly decluttering our house. We're constantly saying, is this thing have a purpose? And if it doesn't, like, for example, we're getting ready to do a garage sale this weekend. The kids want to do a garage sale. They're 7 and 6 years old and they want to do a garage sale. And they've been talking about it for a year. So like, all right, let's do a garage sale. So we go around the house, we just start grabbing things to sell. And I'm like, well, we have a pretty decluttered house as it is, but we still filled up half our garage worth of stuff that we didn't need, and some of it's memorabilia from my coaching career when I was a college football coach, and we won a national championship, right? And it's these glasses, these 4 set of glasses and shot glasses that say national champion on it, and it has the whole record and the schedule and the scores and all that stuff. And I think to myself, well, what the hell am I going to use this for, right? I mean, it's a cool glass, but it doesn't. I have the memory in my head and my heart. I don't need this glass. So things like that, where it's like, it's taking up space, which takes up energy, and it takes up room for something else. And that's a small example. And another example is like when we canceled cable in our home. We wanted to do more and make a larger impact. It was clear that we weren't going to be able to move that needle watching an hour or 2 of TV a day. Like, it just wasn't going to happen. So the drastic change is to create that void, that space in our life to do the work. Let's cancel cable. Now, what are we going to do from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night in the wintertime? Well, we're going to read a book, or we're going to grab a journal, and we're going to, have a deeper conversation that led to where we are today, right? They would never be where we are. So anyway, let's share that side.
I'm interested as well, because at the beginning of lockdown, I just moved house. I moved there for 3 months. I was going to be sharing with someone else, but he ended up going to Spain and getting locked down in Spain. So I ended up having to move back, right? Because I wasn't planning on living there on my own, and things changed. So I actually moved during lockdown, So when there was all restrictions and stuff, I quite far away, like 50 minutes in the car drive away, so I had to keep doing trips back and forth when no one else is moving, but I'm moving, I went there, and because my mate ended up going to Spain, and we were taking over the house, but we do big property maintenance as well. So I moved in to get the house ready for him to do the proper work when he come back. He got locked out into lockdown, and because I didn't know whether it was going to be a long-term move, or we had an option of potentially go to another place around the corner. I know this thing, but we was going to do this one up first. So I'm like, well, I'll move in, I'll get it prepped ready for you to come back. He wasn't coming back then, and I'm like, well, I haven't got no Wi-Fi, because I'm like, I don't want to get into a 12-month contract on this new property, and I don't even know if I'm going to be staying there or not. So I'm just working off my phone on the data on my phone, and I got no TV because I can watch it on my phone if I want to watch Hour at night or something. But I didn't. You're not going to watch much TV on a little phone, So I was like, right, filled my time up with meditation, with listening to the radio, with exercising. I was exercising then more than the 75-day challenge. I was doing half hour in the morning, half hour in the evening, an hour out on my bike because you were only allowed out for an hour. So I used the full hour, did the 2.5 hours of weight. So I was doing 2 hours a day. The 75-day challenge is only 45 minutes a day. So actually, I found the 75-day challenge a bit easier than my own routine that I was doing previous to the challenge. But again, getting rid of the TV, and I was just watching an hour of the news or something when I was going to sleep at night. The rest of the day, I was just doing stuff all day, all day, every day, just not losing any time, reading, writing a book, creating podcast content, just being busy, and it was a really good time. So again, something else we got in common during this lockdown period. But, it's good to get rid of those sort of distractions and that sort of thing, and it's good to just concentrate on what it is that you want to do. It's a great time to transform and to pivot and that in the business.
Right. It's amazing how much energy something you walk by every day that you're like, oh, I don't really need that, or it's just sitting in the way, or like, oh, I should move that. I'll walk by something for months, right, before I finally just go, okay, that goes over here, right, or whatever that may be. And it's amazing, like, oh, I feel better, and it's like how much we don't even recognize it, how much unconscious energy are we using because our space, our environment, whether it be our mental space, our physical space, right, our emotional space, it's cluttered. Yeah. So as we declutter it and we simplify it and we let go of some shit, like, hey, man, we free up space. We get some power back into what's in our control. And I think that is such an important practice right now with what's going on is, with being, the pandemic and everything else, like, hey, how can we take this and use this as a way to simplify, right? Simplify our lives and to come back and recognize what it is really that we want to do and how we want to spend our time and what's going to serve us, right? Not distract us, but serve us.
Yeah, definitely. And what you were saying about different people having the similar messages, but the personal development space is full of people sharing the same information, but maybe sharing it for years because it's the right information. It works. They don't need to change the information or reinvent it. I'm into creativity and innovation, and sometimes language changes, and so someone new has to come along and say the same message in a different way because the audience has changed. And they need
the principles are the same.
Way, right? But the principles are the same.
Principles are the same. That's right. Yeah. Principles, principle, or universal law, however you relate to that, right? I mean, there's no change in the foundation of what that comes from, right?
Yeah, exactly. And I listen to lots of people saying the same message, and I get different things off the different people because, it's tonality, it's tone of voice, it's the language, it's, different people need to hear different things. And so there's billions of people on the planet. So there's an endless supply of people who need to learn something new. And that's what, you come from coaching from an early age, for the sounds of it, with your
Yep.
classes and stuff. I've been educating and coaching people since I was 18 in sales and sales management and in improvement, really. Sales is self-improvement.
Yeah. It's like network marketing. It's the same thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
I've been in
sales,
personal
network.
development all my life, but I only think of it as, actually, you just crystallize a thought in my head. I've been telling people I've been doing personal development since I was 37, 38 or whatever, like the last 4 years. But actually, I just remembered I've been personal developing all my life because I'm a salesperson,
Right.
looking for marginal gain constantly. But also at
Yep.
18 onwards, I've been coaching people on how to get their own marginal gain, their own personal development. So actually, I should be, when, as I say to people, I'm quite new to the personal development space, although I've been in business development, business coaching. Actually, it's all personal development. It's just
Sure it is.
different ways of doing it, if you like. And it
Right.
sounds to me that we both, the reason we've had very similar experiences during lockdown is that we both had probably very similar experiences prior to that as well. And we're actually exactly the same age, which is why we had the same thought processes and the same experiences. And my financial issues were more from the last reset, but yours, you were faced with the same adversity that I was faced then, now, and we're given the same sort of inspiration, if you like, to do something about it. And I was given the same inspiration to do something about it, and have been doing so the last few years. But I really see the opportunity that now's the time to do something about it, even though I've been working on those areas the last few years. The
Yeah.
market, your realization and my realization come exactly the same time as lockdown hit.
Yeah. It's funny you say that. The opportunity. I love that word because the mantra, I love creating mantras for myself to kind of just keep myself in the right frame of mind, whatever I'm going through in the season of life, or it could be the day I'm going through, whatever it is. When this whole thing hit, I thought to myself, there's an opportunity in this. And I didn't know what that meant. I just kept saying to myself, there's opportunity in this. There's opportunity in this. There's opportunity. I mean, over and over and over. Every time I notice a negative thought or a little bit of fear, doubt creep in, because that's going to be there, right? We're human beings.
Yeah.
I would just replace it. There's opportunity in this. Find the opportunity. What's it going to be for you? And
Brian Tracy.
That's right.
Brian Tracy is like a really big guru in the personal development space, but especially in sales. But he teaches a lot of psychology. I'm massively into psychology. But what you're saying there is positive reinforcement, talking to your own, what do they call it, subconscious. Yeah,
Yep.
talking to your own subconscious and talking your way through it, if you like. And Brian Tracy does a lot of that, so you probably find his stuff really resonates with you.
Yeah, the subconscious mind fascinates me. One of the practices when we talk about asking ourselves personal questions, and this is one that has been extremely impactful, is I'll ask a question just before I fall asleep. And there's something interesting that happens with the conscious and the subconscious mind as we're falling asleep, and the conscious mind falls away, right? Subconscious mind becomes open to suggestion. It becomes open to be able to answer questions. So whether you are affirming something to yourself and saying some sort of positive statement, whether it be about a relationship or business or your physical well-being or whatever that may be, or you want to just ask a question, like, for example, how can I find the opportunity in this? And then don't look for the answer. So you just write the question down, you ask the question and go to sleep and forget about it, right? 2 or 3 days, maybe. Could be the next morning when you wake up. It could be a week later, but it will show up. It'll show up when you're listening to a podcast. A friend will call and say something to you. You'll get hit with some inspiration or motivation of some kind. That's like, man, that's what's next for me, And so just asking those simple questions of what's the opportunity there or what's next for me, and then let them go, right? But doing that as we're falling asleep, the subconscious mind will go to work to find the answer.
Yeah, what Brian Tracy teaches, actually, again, I knew you'd love Brian Tracy's stuff, yeah? So once I tell you this now, you're going to listen to some Brian Tracy, right? He's got loads of audiobooks, and I listen to audiobooks when I'm on my bike. I've done about 12 to 14 books during lockdown, mixture of reading and audio. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian Tracy's got 3, which I've loved, which has been the psychology of sales, the psychology of success, and the $1 Million Success Habits. Yeah. And what Brian Tracy will teach you during his conversations is to write down your to-do list for the next day in the night before, because your subconscious will wake up with the answers for a lot of the stuff in the morning. Yeah.
That's right.
Actually, write your biggest, put them in priority and get the first. Again, Brian does a thing called Eat the Frog as well, which is a time management thing, which is get the big thing done and out of the way first, because you get the hormone release of achieving that task, which gives you the
Right.
energy to go on and achieve the other tasks. So you write your list the next day, you put your big priority ones in first, you get them done, and then you do the other stuff later on. And you'll always be more productive and more successful that way, because you're always ticking off the big things of the day early on when you've got the energy and the inspiration to do it. But if you write them down just before you go to bed, then often you'll wake up with a lot of different ideas and innovations and creativity and efficiencies about how to get these things done and achieved.
Isn't that fascinating? Isn't that fascinating? I actually use that principle too, the hardest thing first. So I take a lot of these principles and I kind of hone them in for even my small residential painting company, right? And so there's a few simple principles that we do every day. And so I don't have to be on the job to know that these things are being done. For example, we do the hardest thing first. So if there's a tall peak or the front of the house has more angles or more trim, we know like there's no conversation. That's where we're starting. Yeah. We're going to get the hardest part of this house done first. We're not going to let it hang over our head all day long or all week or whatever that is, right? And so these principles, I think the important piece with understanding when guys like you and I are having these conversations that have had these realizations and we naturally implement these things into our lives, we integrate them into our lives as it's a natural practice, right? And because we have absorbed the information and then we've somehow have authentically worked it into our lives so it becomes part of who we are, is to recognize that they are relatable to anything. I don't care what you do. You don't have to be an influencer. You don't have to be in sales. You don't have to be an entrepreneur. You can be a painter and take on that same mentality of taking on the hardest thing first. And it's going to make you enjoy what you do that much more because you're going to find more flow. You're going to find more flow in it. And you're going to have that dopamine release, right? That chemical release that is the happy hormone, right? That helps you show up and be happy, right? So
exactly. Well, that's why the most of my happiness formula, most people are living 60 to 80% of it, yeah. But what they don't realize is they need the extra 20, 30% to be happy. Yeah. So actually, they're doing a lot of it anyway because they know everyone have heard that exercise is good for you. Everyone knows that nutrition is good for you. Everyone knows that hydration is good for you. Everyone knows that sleep is good for you. Everyone knows, that or they've heard, or most people have heard that some sort of mindfulness or meditation is a benefit to people like that. Mm-hmm. Most people know that actually doing something kind, being kind to others, is a benefit to human beings. Yeah, most people know that some sort of goal or target setting is a benefit to their life, but most
gratitude,
people do all of them.
Right.
Yeah, they will do 60 on a daily basis, especially. They may do all of them at different times, but they don't do all of them daily. And I know for certain they do them all daily at the ratio, at the formula, which I teach and I share. There's a certain balance to get it done. But if you do it every day, you will be happier. You cannot not be happier. It's scientifically,
you're going to be vibrating. You're going to be vibrating, right?
I mean, but you're going to be happier because most of the things they either release endorphins or they release hormones, or they stop you negatively losing those hormones or having negative feelings. So they either do one or the other. They either stop you losing your source of good feeling, or they build up your source of good feeling. So you cannot fail. But if you build up the store to the right point, it's a bit like like in game shows and stuff where there's like a ball in a tube and you got to keep it in water, and eventually the tube gets to the top. It's only when it gets to the top you can reach the ball. Doesn't matter where in that tube you've got to. You can only get the ball released when it's at the top. Yeah? And that's a bit like your happiness store. The happiness really only kicks in once you build up the store to a certain point. So you have to keep doing the things that you're doing to really hit the peaks of happiness. You've got to be doing it all consistently in a short period of time, a 24-hour
day. It's what it makes me think about is for me what's been a huge influence to connect the dots. So why I do the things that you're talking about, all those pieces of the puzzle, it's backed up in science. Like you can't argue with it. Science proves it. Like this is setting up neurological pathways. So you think, you feel different. If you think and you feel different, your actions are different. Now your results are different. I mean, you can work that model front ways, back ways, however you want. But at the end of the day, it's science.
Exactly.
A gratitude practice is science, right?
Yeah.
A meditative practice is science. Hydration and sleep, it's science. You can't say, oh, well, I don't need sleep, or
I don't
oh, well,
believe
I do better. I'm happier if I don't find things that I'm grateful for. Bullshit. You're happier if you find something you're grateful for. It's just
because psychology is science too, and psychology is fact.
science.
You know what I mean?
Right.
This is why I'm a big debater. I've been in sales all my life. I'm going to share big stages with big thinkers, at some point in my life. And I love to be able to talk about something. I know the science behind. I know the facts behind it. It matches my logic. It's the people I tell about my happiness formulas, my success formulas. No one has ever challenged me and said, "Oh, that's a load of rubbish," or "That don't make sense," or nothing, because they can't.
Right. No, you
Because
can't
it's
argue.
logic. You know what I mean? You can't tear 5 steps of happiness down, because they're all scientifically proven to help you. Like, you know what I mean? And you can't
Right.
which one of systems, technology, relationships, action, marketing, and sales isn't going to give you more success?
Well, and on the other side of that, if somebody is struggling to incorporate all that stuff into their life, I have empathy for that, because I've been there. I've been there where, like, hey, I know what I'm supposed to do. I know that I'd feel better if I slept better, and if I ate better, and if I exercise, and okay, this whole gratitude thing, I'm not sure about that, but I've heard that it works. And I've been there in that place where I was only checking off some of the boxes. And something to recognize is that there's parts of us, right? There's parts of us in our psyche or otherwise, and that we're addicted potentially to our own suffering. We're addicted to not being happy, right? Because of that chemical release. Our bodies are used to whatever existence or experience we have had. Therefore, we are conditioned and we are actually addicted to that experience. So we have to break those addictions and create a new pathway to a new experience. So, people who potentially are doing, like you say, 60 or 80% of them, and they're not, it's not working all the way well. It's partly because we're still stuck in this old story, in this old narrative. And we just have to recognize that's part of being human. So if we're going through that river of change, we don't only need to understand, like, here's the practices that are going to lead to happiness, but we also have to let go. We have to let go of this old experience, these old beliefs, this old way of being. That it's a real simple, profound statement. I was on a coaching call just last week with my own personal coach, and the topic came up was like, the price of the new life is the old one. Right? So we have to let go of how we're living, what we're doing with our life, who maybe even our circle of influence, but we have to let go of even these unconscious beliefs about ourselves. And then the practices that lead to happiness become easier, because we've laid down that pathway and we've practiced it. We practiced it over time. And then it becomes automatic, it becomes normal, it becomes just how we live. Right? But we have to do the work.
Yes, definitely. And there's one key element which I don't teach in any of my formulas, but it's the one missing ingredient that makes the formulas work, and it's actually what makes change work, and it's actually what makes any coaching work, and that is the secret sauce part of this formula. And that's there's 2 secret sauce parts of it, actually, which aren't in the formulas, but they're the bits that you really need to work on, and that's the why. So actually why you do things, your reason, yeah? And the why impacts massively your mental approach, your mental attitude, yeah? But also you need to have the right mental attitude, the right mental fortitude, because it doesn't matter what anyone teaches you. If you're not willing to learn and to take it on board and to make those changes, then it doesn't matter. You can get taught by the best people on the planet the best information, but you're just not going to apply any of it. So actually those things are key first as well. So actually, it's like, if you want to teach people anything, you've got to at some point get them to work out the why they actually are doing anything or trying to learn anything for them anyway. What is that? What does that why look like? And that massively has an effect on their mental approach and keeps them switched on to the change and the wanting to change. But also, you've got to have a mental toughness, a mental fortitude to be able to make change, get rid of an old life, if you like, and become a new person in a new life. But you need to be able to stop going back to those old things. So whether it's addiction drawing you back, or whether it's comfort, or whether it's just you can only sustain something for a short period of time and then you just revert back to plan A or revert back to the normal. You need to decide mentally how that looks, for each person.
Well, yeah, you can create a mental image of where you're going. That helps to create that pathway to where you're going. The other piece with that too, what you say, where we fall back into old patterns or old beliefs or old habits, is we sometimes as human beings, especially when we recognize, hey, we're just sick of being tired, or we're sick and tired of just what's showing up in our lives, the results we're getting, right? So we then try to make this big, massive change. We always love using the physical as a reference point. So like we go from not working out for 3 months. It's New Year's resolution time. I'm going to go to the gym. I set that New Year's resolution. Well, it's too much of a change too quickly, and we're going to have resistance and pushback, and we're not going to be able to sustain that. So one of the things that we teach in IHP is incremental shifts. It's taking things on. And this is based in science. It is taking things on one at a time, one new practice. And whether that be, okay, if I've never had any sense of a morning routine, to kind of really ground myself and get clear about who I want to show up as today, then I'm not going to start out with a 2-hour routine, or I'm not going to start with a 20-minute routine. It might be 5 minutes. Hell, it might even be 1 minute to start out. Right?
5 affirmations down and moving on, and just
right. And that's it. That's it. And then I can build on it, and I can build on it, and I can build on it, and I can hold on to this idea that I'm going to continue this practice, the idea that life is a practice. I'm going to practice becoming a better version of myself so I can get things to show up the way I want them to. I can have the relationships I want. I can have the success I want, the abundance that I want to draw into my life, right? The people who I want to vibrationally match with. It's not going to happen tomorrow, right? It's going to happen over the course of a year or 2 years. But the best way to get to that place 2 years from now, or whatever that be, is incremental shifts, tiny little movements, right? What are we going to do for ourselves as a minimum every single day to create that momentum, rather than saying change? I think a lot of times we think about change and we think about it being some massive change and it has to be tomorrow, right? Why do I wake up? I go to bed with all this crazy motivation. I watch some super inspiring TV show or a movie, or I hear a song, and boy, I can go conquer the world, right? And the next morning I wake up and I can't even hardly get out of bed. Like, what happened to that motivation? Well, it's fleeting and it's external. So we incrementally take these little shifts on every single day, and we do it by looking inward, finding that intrinsic motivation that is sustainable. And over time, we can look back now, and this is why journaling is so important. We can look back over the last 2 years and say, wow, look how far I've come, because I've taken on this principle of getting 1% better every single day, right? And this is what we call incremental shifts. Like, we're not going to sit here and tell you, okay, here we are. You're going to do this, and this, all these different formulas of happiness. Let's take on one of these pieces. Let's take on hydration. Let's take on just sleep. Let's take on just meditation.
Let's just analyze where you're at with the current position and just work out how you could just get slightly more out of each
where you're at.
So
that's right.
If you're drinking 2 pints of water a day, try drinking 3. If you're sleeping for 7 hours, try sleeping for 7.5 hours. Set the alarm.
Exactly.
Just tiny little changes, So marginal gains, small marginal gains is how I did everything. Obviously, when I did the 75-day challenge, that's like, most people can't stick to something for more than, say, 28 days. And a lot of people believe that if you do something for 28 days, it's a new habit. But it's a new habit very weak, and you can easily revert back to an old habit. But if people can't do a diet for, say, 75 days, can't exercise non-stop for 75 days, can't give up alcohol for 75 days just on their own, But, I had to do them all together as part of a challenge. But I already was doing a similar routine before that for 3 months, which I implemented myself during lockdown. And so, but I'm quite mentally fortitude. I've got strong mental toughness, if you like. And I've seen the massive incentive of getting fit because there's a killer virus out there, and the massive incentive of, like, go and exercise for an hour a day because you're only allowed out for an hour a day. So I just made the best of a bad situation, and that gave me the motivation to do what I needed to do. And so sometimes, again, you can do marginal gains. You can actually do big gains as well, but it all depends how motivated you are. So it depends on your why. Or, this is why, like, I was able to take on massive change really quickly because of my why. The why was so big. And like when I lost a stone once before I got married in like a month, and again, that was just because I was motivated because I was getting married and I wanted to look better on the wedding pictures. So again, so sometimes, getting that mentality right and getting the why right, etc., can actually mean that not only can you grow by the small marginal gains, but you can actually grow massively and quickly if you want to. It just all depends how much you want it. Depends how bad you want it.
But the pace of which you can set that's sustainable is something we have to look at. I mean, no question we can sprint.
Yeah.
But how are we going to set ourselves up to set a minimum pace?
Yeah.
Right. And then when it's time, there's seasons, man. I'm telling you, but right now we're in a season. I'm on 9 podcasts in the next 2 days. Yeah. Right. I mean, this is a season of pushing. Right. And so there's definitely a season for you to sprint. But when you come back out of that season, make sure that we have some sense of a minimum of how much we're going to do so we can continue after that sprint to still get 1% better every day. Right. Does that make sense? Because I think a lot of times I have a friend of mine who he goes on to Atkins diet and then this diet and then the keto diet, and every time he gets off one of these, he puts the 40 pounds right back on. Right. Yeah. I'm like, how about we create a lifestyle and a way of eating and nutrition and sleep and hydration that allows for us to just be, and then if you want to sprint once in a while and try to cut 10 or 15 pounds, well, that's fine. But let's come back to a minimum. Let's come back to a way that we're getting 1% better every day.
Yeah, definitely. And like you say, it all depends as well. It depends what other things people have got in their lives, because you can make much more change much more quickly if you haven't got so much going on.
But if with no kids at home or
yeah. So yeah, that's why to me, coaching and training there's always a bespoke nature to it if you do it right, because one size never fits all.
Right. That's
we're
the truth.
all different shapes and sizes.
Yeah. And everybody's there, they have to lead themselves, there can be a guide, but at the end of the day, you gotta take the paddle,
Yeah, definitely.
Individual.
Definitely. And have you got any more appointments after this? Because I know we've been hour so far.
I got about in about 30 minutes. I have another appointment. Yep. So.
That's fine. Yeah, I got another one at 7, but I've got to make a phone call for a short time since. But I think we covered quite a lot of what I normally cover. I didn't actually have to ask my 5 steering questions. Because
I noticed you weren't asking any questions. We're just talking back and forth. I love it.
Yeah, exactly. They're the best conversations. They are the natural, organic conversations that just get when there's so much in common that you both got different aspects of the same conversation you want to pull out of each other, if you like, and just it's a bit like a verbal sparring about, okay, I know this, and how do you see that, and how do you see that, and what do you know, and and they're the best conversations because that's 2 people growing together at the same time.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed this, Mike. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, I have too. And sometimes I get entrepreneurs on who are on slightly different paths, if you like, and then I'm just asking them, about their business and showcasing what they do to my audience, and that's great too. But I much more prefer the verbal spars and the sort of challenge each other, test each other, to see what people's what do you think of this, and what do you think of that, and what's your opinion on this, and that's when you've got kindred spirits, really. I'd say really sort of in the same mental space and wanting to chat and talk about the same sort of things, really, so I definitely will connect with you on all social media and all of that as well, and happily anything I post and you want to take anything from it, I'd happily do that, and I'll do the same with yours, because it's putting people in front of different audiences and different messages and different voices saying the same thing.
Well, one thing that my wife always talks about is there's enough room at the table for everybody.
Yes.
We all need, mentorship, and someone needs to be mentored. And, the only way we're all going to grow is to be able to take your perspective and be able to add it to mine. And, and to be able to objectify those things and look at them and learn from them and grow from them. I really believe that there's no competition in the world. It's all competition is just perceived, and there's enough for everybody. And, I want everybody to realize their own truth, and their own potential. And
I sort of am quite competitive because I played a lot of sports, but I'm more competitive with myself on how I can improve myself. I do look at what other people are doing and thinking, okay, what have I got to do to try and get to that level, if you like? But I'm not competitive in like I want them to go down a level and me above them or step over people to get there or anything like that. In fact, I love competition for the fact that it helps two people to grow better together. So have a look at all the greats in the sporting world. The ones that are the real greats are the ones who have great competitors to compete with, because they both pushed each other on. So everybody wins because you just become better together through that growth. So I'm big into that really, and how we can push each other to keep growing and be competitive that way. Competitive to be tall and blooming and at the top of our game. Whoever that be, whoever I see wants to compete or wants to help each other or push each other or grow each other, then to me that's great.
That's one of my next projects I'm working on is a book that's going to be based around, just the idea of competition and success. And coming from a sports background, where there's a clock running and we're keeping score, and there has to be a winner and a loser. And I love that style of competition. It's controlled, and there's referees and there's an audience, right? And you have to determine a winner and a loser. But in the world, the competition is vastly different. And I noticed my own conditioning of going from being a collegiate football coach to the real world.
You've gone quiet. You've gone on mute, I think. You hit the mute.
Did I mute? Somehow did I mute? I noticed, so I don't know where you lost me there, but I noticed how
you as a collegiate coach and you and everyone's you like the controlled nature of that sporting thing, but then in the real world, that's where
So in the real world, the competition is vastly different. There doesn't have to be a winner and a loser. I don't look at, for example, something small with our painting companies. There's hundreds of other residential painting companies just in our area. And I don't look at it as competition. I really don't. It's not me versus you. It's us just doing our best. And the better you are as a company, the more it brings our level up, right? And so I think a lot of times, people coming from athletic backgrounds come into the world, and then they compete from a place of I have to be better than, right? And that means I win, you lose. And that's really operating from a place of fear, right? Of a place of if I don't win, I'm not good enough, or I'm not better than you, or then it's this comparison. Competition easily turns into comparison, which is not healthy, right? And we start to put a lot of meaning making around failure and all those types of things. And so that's the next kind of little project I'm working on when it comes to a book that I'm writing is to really highlight this idea. What is healthy competition? And then as we look at it from the rest of our life, because most of us, we're done playing sports at 18 years old, right? But we take on that same mindset all the way through our sales and this and that other type of professions we're doing, and then obviously it's even further ingrained into people who, go into coaching or collegiate athletes or even professional athletes. I was 35 years old or so, 36 years old when I walked away from my collegiate coaching career. And, I had to recognize to break that, and more abundance shows up in my life when I stop competing, right? And I just show up as the best version of myself, and not look at it like, hey, there's enough for everybody. Like, how can I support you? And the more that I actually give to other contractors, just talking about painting still, and more I give to other contractors work, and hey, this job's not perfect for me, maybe you'd want it, and they are like, really, thank you so much. The more the right work comes to me.
And the more they give back as well, or someone else gives back, and knock-on effect of the next person gives back forever. So
exactly. So I feel it the same way in the coaching career, right? In our coaching profession, like the more people out there sharing their message, their perspective, where they come from, their background, and how they've connected the dots, the better, right?
because
And
somebody needs to hear that message.
yeah, and also the more people you connect with and network with in the same sector, the more you can collaborate on bigger work in that sector as well. Like, you know,
Sure.
so
Make
like,
a larger impact.
you've got 3 mates who are painters and decorators, and all of a sudden you get a massive job in, and it's just you. You have to say, no, I can't do it. I don't have enough people. You know, whereas if you used to collaborating with 2, 3, 4, 5 others, you're like, oh, guys, got a massive job on. Like, you know, who's in? And all of a sudden you're just able to do something, you know, great together because you're all, you know, you all know each other and you all trust each other and you're all doing the same thing. So that's how I always look at everything. You know, to me, networking. Like I've been networking twice a week for 8 years since being self-employed, and I probably do more business and more work with the other marketeers in my network than I do the non-marketeers. And some networks don't allow multiple people categories and stuff because they see them as competition. You know,
Right.
but actually the wrong way. You know, I see them as all collaborators because more marketing people understand other marketing people, and so we understand the differences, and so therefore we collaborate together to do. Oh, well, you do that bit, I'll do this bit, and you do joint ventures together, etc. And there are some organisations out there they don't understand collaboration, so they have these non-compete rules where they're like, well, you can't join this network because we already got one of you already. It's like, well, that don't make no sense. You know, what happens when he's busy? What happens when he's ill?
Right. Right. Or if he doesn't want it. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. So again, but I think as human nature is to often feel that sort of limited resource. It's either me or you that has it, and ultimately, you know, one person's. That's why a lot of people are jealous. You know, they put keys down cars and all that sort of things. They're like, well, you've had that car, so I can't get it. You know, whereas I look at that car and I think, oh, that's a lovely car. Well done. He's obviously worked hard to get it. You know, one day I might get a car like that because I'll work hard to get it. You know what I mean? You know, there's no negative connotation to it, but for the vast majority of people, they get jealous, they get envious, they're not happy with what they're doing, so they don't want anyone else to be happy doing what they're doing either. Like, you know?
Right. That's right.
So
that's the nature of the mind.
Yeah, and that's why, you know, random acts of kindness is a big part of my happiness formula as well. I've always done good things for other people and tried to be kind whenever I could. And I think during the lockdown period, it's never been a better time to try and just be kind, speak to the neighbor, go shopping for somebody, you know, pick up a phone to a relative. And I'm on social media all the time, and I'm constantly educating people about, you know, like commenting, engaging. If somebody puts some content on, they don't just give them a thumbs up. Tell them why you like the content. You know what I mean? Engage with them. Share some happiness. Say thanks for sharing. This social media has made it so easy to do random acts of kindness. I'm going to leave your room. You only got to use your thumb. You can sit there watching telly every evening, scrolling up and down and just going, great post. Thanks for sharing. Love this. Yeah. And that's all being kind, you know, resharing it so that other people get to see it. So it's just kindness. It's like there's a lot of people out there struggling in their businesses, so just share their messages to new audiences and help them along a bit, like, you know.
I love it. No, that's right. We can find all kinds of different ways to practice those same basic principles.
Yeah, exactly. And it's never been so easy to help people, but some people just are too one-dimensional and too busy focused on themselves to actually just look up and think, who else can I actually help? You know, who else can I impact today? And you know, that's what I'm all about. That's why I put all my content on my podcast. It's a bit like a young entrepreneur's university, but it's got personal development, motivation, positivity. So it's actually just an academy for anyone who wants to get a bit positive in their life, like, you know.
Right. I love it. I love what you're doing, Mike.
Yeah, and I love what you're doing too. So yeah, I think we'll wrap it up here. I'm going to say thanks very much for coming on the podcast and for a great conversation, and keep up the good work. And I'd love to, like I say, just stick in with you and what you're putting out there. I'm going to like and engage and share with whatever I see. If you want to tag me in. And yeah, you know, especially on September when you're doing your launch, tag me in and I'll reshare it to my audience and my community. And perhaps we'll get you on again at that, you know, maybe a bit down the line, and find out how it's going, the new launch, and what you've learned from that whole process, because that's all good information for my audience as well. So Yeah, thanks very much and have a great day, okay?
I appreciate it, Mike. We'll be in touch. Thank you so much.
Brilliant. All the best.
Bye.
Right. There's nothing else left for me to say now other than have a great day. I know I will. And thanks very much for listening. Cheers. Bye-bye.